Welcome into Barbecue for Newbies. I'm your host, Kurt Mueller, joined today by co-pitmaster Jonathan Sands with the Rib Publicans barbecue team based out of South Georgia, Adel, Georgia to be precise. Jonathan, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Kurt, glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Hope we have a good talk.
So for our listeners, I had the chance to connect briefly with Jonathan. Actually, at our last event, we were down in Lake Blackshear. There was a pro and a backyard competition down there, and that's how we connected and just got to talking. And so here we are. But Jonathan has made the leap recently from being the king of the street, or the king of his backyard. He's jumped into backyard competitions, and I'm glad to have him on the show because I wanted to chat more about, his journey. And that's one thing we chat a lot about, Jonathan, is just the journey into competitive barbecue, because everybody's got a unique story. So educate us. What's your journey into competitive barbecue?
Mine, I guess you would say, is pretty close to most of the people that would be listening to this, or, getting into barbecue, especially backyard. When I say backyard, like, just at their house. Probably we've been doing it for about 3 years. And ironically, I got my start from a buddy, Bubba Emmerich here in Adel. He's a good friend of mine. He had one of those old gourmet chef electrics, the little red, kind of drum looking smoker, got about 200, 225 temperature. And I went over one day and he was smoking a butt, and I got outside looking at it, and man, I just fell in love with it. I thought that was the coolest crap that there was. So probably the next day, 2 days later, I had ordered one, got it in, put it together, and I started with butts. And I was cooking a butt every time that I could. And, like everybody does, where's your friends? Hey, y'all come over, y'all try this, tell me what you think. And then I would do something else, and then I'd do something else. Then it got into ribs. Then it got into, brisket, chicken, and all that. Well, probably about 2 years beyond that, I'm on my personal Facebook and I'm posting pictures, and everybody's like, man, you should open a restaurant. You should open a barbecue pit. You should do competition. Well, my uncle, Tony Morris, who's a teammate with me, he come and said, hey, why don't we do that? And I was like, like everybody says, I'm too busy. I have multiple companies of myself. I do media advertisement, medical certification. My uncle's real big in the Shriner, Scottish Rite, and all that. And I said, I'd like to, but, do we really have time for it? And he says, well, we can make time. So I said, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And I said, we got to come up with a catchy team name so people could recognize who we are. So we came up with Republicans, and it's kind of a mix between, yes, we are Republicans. That's kind of what we lean to. But we kind of broke the name down into rib for being food, pub for drink, and I can. So I like to eat and drink. So it's kind of like a dual, kind of funny to our names. And I think our merchandise and our shirts and all that is more popular than our barbecue, because everywhere we go, everybody's like, I got to have a shirt. I think we probably gave away 10 while we were out at the last, Blackshear competition. So we made a Facebook page. We post a lot of our stuff on there. Hopefully in the future, we are going to start doing, videos on YouTube, because I'm a firm believer that whatever you learn, you should be able to share that. That's how we grow, this competition, this industry that we're in, because somebody might not know how to do stuff, but if you can help them out, you may learn something from them. And as you stated, like we talked about at Blackshear, information is plenty out there. Everybody helps everybody. I learned probably more out there in Blackshear in 15 minutes of talking to two teams than I have looking stuff up on YouTube and reading probably for the last 2 weeks. So
that's what's great about that barbecue community. It's very supportive. Like we were talking about before the show, it's a family. Until you start beating them.
Correct. But it's amazing how, when you talk about football, baseball, golf, it's so competitive. You don't want to give your edge to somebody else. And I'm not saying that every team tells them, every little secret. But if a team comes up to another and says, hey, man, I forgot this, or I need this, do you have it? I've never seen somebody turn down somebody. Matter of fact, one small competition that we had recently, I have a good friend who cooks as well, Devin Adderton with Major D Barbecue. We're side by side and we're at a competition, and he comes up to me and says, man, this is kind of a rookie move, but I needed some Ziploc bags. And, most people be like, oh, that's kind of sucks for you. We just naturally walked over there and gave him a box of ours and says, here you go. Because I know without a fact, if I walked over there and asked him for anything, he would say, how much would you need? And that's pretty much how it is in the competition barbecue.
That's right. But that family, that family atmosphere, you do have the competitive side of it, but at the end of the day, it's barbecue, it's family,
It is
building relationships. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So how long have you been competing in the backyard division?
I probably just say for maybe just a little over a year now. I mean, we're kind of fresh into it. We definitely wanted to get our feet wet before we made the decision that we were going to jump up, kind of to the pro circuit, really get into the GBA, start kind of traveling around, make sure that what we think our recipes, which ones work the best, and, start promoting that. So we really wanted to take this time to see where we kind of rank. I know on the backyard side, but just seeing, hey, okay, we placed this time. Okay, we placed this time. We must have something good going on that the judges like, so we can kind of narrow our craft, hone our craft down, and then move up.
Now, do you think you'll make that jump next year?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
If not next year, I would definitely say within 2 years, especially in the GBA, we're gonna make that jump and try to do the pro circuit. Going for the points and all that.
And for our listeners, this is an important topic to kind of camp out on. I know we have listeners that might be thinking, okay, I really want to get into competitive barbecue. How do I do it? So there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do what Jonathan and his Uncle Tony did, and that is start in the backyard division and learn the craft, perfect it, and then work your way up to the pro division. You can decide, you know what, I'm going to skip the backyard and go right to pro. So it's really, and you can, depending on where you live in the country, you can decide, well, if there's a lot of FBA in your area, then you might cook FBA. If there's a lot of GBA, you might cook GBA or KCBS.
Correct.
So you can really, there's a lot of different options, right?
A ton of options. You can take whatever avenue you want. If you want to rock a whole year in the backyard, you can. If you want to do a few comps to say you're ready and jump pro circuit, you can. I mean, there's a category for you, and don't let it intimidate you when you see what you have to turn in. If you're only good at ribs, or if you're only good at butts, you can just enter that. Just try your recipes and see what happened there, and see if you place, and then build your repertoire from there, get better, and then move up to the pro circuit.
That's exactly right. And so a lot of different options. And even if you're sitting back saying, well, I really don't want to compete, I still think if you do a couple of backyards and you do a couple of those friendly competitions,
oh yes,
your food at the house is gonna be better, worst case, right?
Guaranteed it. And I have yet to meet hardly any people, if you tell them that you got free barbecue and you want them to try, that they can't seem to free up their schedule to come try it for you. And the thing is, you have to find two kind of people when you do that. You're going to have your families and friends that's going to tell you it's great regardless of what it takes. You need to, during that time while you're trialing, and I'm a very big proponent that you're going to have to trial. If you want to do this serious, get into the backyard and into the pro circuit, this is going to become like a job too. You're going to have to do trial runs, experimentations, all that. But you got to find you a good group of people that's going to tell you the truth about your barbecue. It's too sweet, too hot, too spicy. It's got too much tug on the rib, or it's too tender. If you'll have people that will do that, your barbecue game will jump leaps and bounds instead of you just finding friends that's going to tell you what you want to hear. When you're in competition, you're not there to get your feelings made good by your friends. You're there to say, I have the best food out of everybody that's out here.
That's exactly right. And you hit on something that's very important. And that is, there's two different types of barbecue. The barbecue that you turn in at a competition to be judged, and the barbecue that you cook at home.
Correct.
Two different things.
Totally.
So you have to remember as you get into the competition circuit that you're really cooking for the judges. And you might say to yourself, I would never cook like this at home. That's okay, because you're cooking for the judges.
Because I try to tell people that when I talk to them about us barbecuing and all that, you tell them like this: competition, you're cooking for that judge to have one bite and basically base everything on that one bite. If you're at the house, you're just going to make it good where everybody enjoys your food and you're not trying to just explode them with just a whole bunch of flavor. I mean, like ribs, I got to the point when we were starting, you think, oh, I got to use 5 different ribs, 3 different sauces, all these based and all that. You can cook amazing St. Louis ribs, spare ribs with just salt, pepper, and garlic. Just, start your bases, figure out your times, temps, your internals, your wraps, butcher paper, tinfoil, and then start working your way up. You don't have to be a pro when you start this. The whole journey that I like the most, and my uncle does as well too, is the journey to get where we started to where we are now, from the amount of followers that we had on our Facebook when we started to where we are now, to people that's never had our barbecue, to people calling us saying, hey, we got a function going on. Can y'all almost cater, or can y'all prepare us some stuff to go? It's just a journey of getting to where we are. That's the most fun of all this.
Amen. I love that. You're exactly right. And it's funny because we've been competing on our team since September of last year, but you're exactly right. Like we get calls, every now and then, hey, do you guys do catering? Do you guys sell barbecue? Yeah. And you kind of build that following on social media. And I always say, if money wasn't an object for me, I think I would just retire and just tour the whole country of all the barbecue hotspots, right? I go to Texas, Kansas City, Memphis, you name it. I'd be everywhere. But anyway, I just think it's I can't say enough, about the barbecue family and how supportive it can be. And it's like anything else in this world. You can put as much time into it or as little as you want. I will say though, if you're really watching the numbers and you're watching the investment, then I would say that you're really doing yourself a disservice by the time you're paying the registration fee, paying for the meat, the travel and all that. You're really doing yourself a disservice if you're not, putting out the best you can put out there and learning as much as you can.
And I want to say this too, for the people that's wanting to get into this, if you're going into this thinking it's a competition where you win money and you start going to these things and you're not winning anything, and that's what you're basing whether you're going to do it or not, you're in the wrong field. You're in the wrong industry. I do this. He does this. You probably have to do this. We don't do it for the money. We could spend our money on whole different hobbies, things that we can do. We really love to cook barbecue. I really love to cook barbecue and make people say, wow, you did this. Yeah, I did this. If we walk and we get a check up there, that's just gravy on the whole day. If we get a trophy, that's just gravy on the whole day. I just do it and he does it and Republicans does it because that's what we love to do. And it's just like 90% of the teams out there. Now, do a lot of the teams do it for the money to help as well too? Yeah, they do. But I guarantee a lot of them say if the checks didn't come, they probably would still do this.
You're exactly right. If you're getting into competitive barbecue to retire, you're going to be sorely disappointed. So
yeah. I love him to death. Not everybody's going to be Myron. Not everybody's going to be Robbie Royal, Mo Kayson, and all of them. You can still make some money and have a lot of fun doing this with your friends and friends that you'll make at every competition that you go to. Every time we go to a competition, we're meeting people, swapping numbers and swapping Facebook pages. So it's just amazing how many people that you'll meet that you never would have done it unless you got into barbecue competition.
Well, and it sounds like from what you said earlier that you may be onto something with those T-shirts of yours. So
I think the merchandise is more popular than the barbecue. It's just amazing how the shirts go. They love it. They love the name. People think it's the coolest little thing, and it's something that we came up one weekend. We just was playing around with some words, trying to put it together with ribs or pork and all that. And I said, "What about Republicans?" And he's like, "I love it." And I said, "Let's roll with it. We might, You know how the nation is right now. There's a lot of turmoil. I said we might catch a little bit of slack, but I guarantee you we'll probably have more people laugh about it than anything. And I bet you 99% of them say, oh, my God, that's the funniest thing ever. And it's just catchy. And that's how you start conversations with, what do you do? What do you compete in? Do y'all have a Facebook page? And that's how you just keep getting the followers to come onto your page wanting to keep up with what you're doing.
Well, it sounds like you might need to be trademarking that sometime soon. Then.
Yeah, we're working on it too, especially when we get on to YouTube and trying to make some videos as well.
That's right. Now let's camp out on some of the equipment that you're using, right? So some of the
Cool.
smokers that you're using, because I think it's important that, especially the listeners that we have that are looking at getting into competition, but they just, it's overwhelming, right? There's hundreds
Overwhelming.
of smokers. So
Hundreds.
what are y'all using?
You can get on YouTube and get swamped with the information that's on there and people telling you, hey, this is the best thing that's out there. And there's a lot of good things out there. I have made my runs through your Traegers. I've made my runs through your Pit Balls, Green Mountain Grills. A good one that I like is Grilla Grills, which was based out of Michigan. I used their stuff when I started. Currently, right now, we are using a company out of Texas called Lone Star Grills. And shout out to Chris, who's the owner there. He is tremendous. He has a company that is, I would say, second to none. He has answered the phone call that I've had on questions about stuff more than I think his customer service does, because he wants to make sure that his name and his product is synonymous with top class, first class, So we use their 42-inch offset on off-road package because we have to load in the trailers off and on, and it makes it super easy with the wheels that's on there. Holds temp like a beast, takes a little bit of wood, and you can go hours on that thing. And they recently came out with a pellet smoker. And I was lucky to get some of the first batches that was coming out. And I will honestly say I've used a lot of pellet smokers. And pellet smokers, I want to let people know on here, pellet smokers are popular on competition barbecue, and they win checks and they win trophies. Their pellet smoker is probably the best pellet smoker I have used by far. The smoke output that it puts out, the temperature that it holds, the robustness of the cooker, the thickness of the materials, the welds is second to none. So not trying to plug them on here, but if you're interested, go look at them. If you're interested in getting into it and you were looking at a pellet smoker, I would definitely look at Lone Star Grill's pellet smoker, because that thing can honestly keep up with an offset better than any other pellet out there.
And that is unique in that, a lot of times, especially with the older generations in competitive barbecue, there's that stigma, right, about pellet grills.
Oh yes.
There's that kind of that people don't really say it, but you can kind of feel it. And I agree with you. I've seen plenty of teams, walk up on stage using pellet grills, and I can't remember who said it. I wish I could remember who it was, but they had a great comment, and basically they said it doesn't matter about the cooker; it matters about what matters most.
That's right.
And
like you said, you've got people that say as well, if you don't cook with an offset, you're not going to do anything. Partly it is the cookers, it's like a 50-50. It's the equipment that you use, but it's the person using it. It's the person that spent time to research and experiment on their meats to turn in exactly the best thing they can. And I want people to understand that, yes, the offsets out there, when you get into competition barbecue, they're expensive. They can be a few $1,000s, and that can be an issue for a lot of people starting out because money is tight. But you can get you a good quality pellet smoker to at least start learning the trade, getting into it, and you can produce phenomenal barbecue, and you can win at competitions, and you can win trophies, and you can make money.
That's exactly right. It's another. I took a class one time back in January, and one of the instructors, Lee Hickel, out of Texas, actually, he's a big cooker out there. But one of the things I remember him saying is tenderness trumps taste. And if you can master the tenderness, no matter what kind of cooker, whether it's offset, pellet, drum, vertical, if you can master that, then you will likely do very well in competition. So
hey, you can pull out your old trusty Weather with an offset of your charcoal, and you can win competitions. If you know what you're doing and you practice, you got just as good a much chance as anybody that's out there that signed up that day.
That's exactly right. So since you guys are the Republicans, I wanted to camp out on a simple at-home rib recipe for our listeners. Not anything competition grade, but just something that's simple. Something that's gonna make them the king of their street when it comes to ribs.
I would always say if I'm backyarding it at my house for my friends and family, I'm going to go grab a good cut of spare ribs, and I'm going to slice them down to turn them into St. Louis, and then use the rib tips to make some little snackies, for everybody as it's waiting on it. You don't have to use a binder. You can just lay it on there, let it sweat out. I preferably like, and I'm gonna give a little secret here, is duck fat spray. I used to use mustard all the time, but duck fat spray that you can get in Walmart, Publix, even Amazon. I use a light binder of that. If you're cooking at home, listen, SPG all the way. Salt, pepper, garlic, maybe throw you in a little bit of paprika or cayenne or something that you like on there. Throw them on there. I am a true believer in 275. They should call me the 275 Club. Just about everything that I cook is at 275 degrees. Chicken, I'll go up three plus, for that. But I cook a lot at 275. Throw them on there. I've got a method down where I throw them on there for about 2 hours unwrapped. Just let them go. I don't spritz. I don't touch it, because if you're peeking, you're not cooking. Leave the door shut and let the smoke hit it. 2 hours, pull them off. You can throw them in foil. If you want to do the whole thing that everybody's doing, the butter, the brown sugar and all that, your favorite barbecue sauce, put that in there. Do whatever that you like to do. We may wrap one day in butcher paper, and we may wrap one day in tinfoil. But what we like to do when we're just doing backyard, we'll even throw it in there with a little bit of tiger sauce. Johnny Trigg made that famous, with his stuff. Put a little brown sugar in there, a little bit of butter. Make sure it's wrapped tight. Throw it back on there for about an hour. We have found going about 3 hours and then letting the ribs sit for about 10, 15 minutes in the tin foil. They have that perfect, what we think is perfect bite, where it's not fall off the bone, but it's still a tender bite that you can pull the meat away, from the ribs. You can get complicated with it, but if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how the different rubs and sauces mix, you can have just a big cluster right there. So if you're starting out just trying to get into the groove of competition barbecue to figure out about what it looks like, how it tastes, your tenderness, SPG all the way. Throw maybe a little one or two things on top of that and just roll with it and learn your smoker, learn what you're doing, learn your times. And the biggest thing is people need to learn that internal temperature is better than the temperature that you're cooking at.
That's exactly right.
If you don't have a meat probe, then you need to get one, because the internal temperature is really what makes or breaks you more in a competition than anything that you throw on there or wrap on top of it.
So keep things simple. SPG, salt, pepper, garlic.
Maybe a little cayenne, a little paprika, whatever. Like I said, a little trick that we use is duck fat oil. It just gives a richness to whatever that it touches. We just spray a little bit on there. That creates the binder. And then we just start casting our rubs, just salt, pepper, garlic on there. Throw it on there 2 hours at 275 degrees. Don't spritz it. Take it up, wrap in butcher paper tin foil, throw a little bit of stuff in there, go for another hour, and let them sit 15 minutes. And I would guarantee you're going to have very few people, if any, is going to complain about what you feed them.
You're going to be the king of the street, and real quick.
Oh, I guarantee you won't have a problem having people come over to your house when they smell it. So,
well, that's awesome. So, what is your favorite meat to cook? What's your favorite one?
Oh God, probably me and chicken has a love-hate relationship, especially in competition. That is the one thing I hate the most that I have to do. But I would say probably the one I love to do the most, because of just the different ways you can break it down and let people try it, whether it's just at your house or the competition. It's probably a Boston butt. I think Boston butt is probably the most traditional thing out there. Some people would say ribs, but I say Boston butt, because you can just put a whole Boston butt on there, rub it down, put your stuff on there, let it smoke, shred that thing down, and people will enjoy it. I do love ribs, and I probably cook ribs more, at home than anything else. But I've actually started getting more into brisket, and I know that probably blows people's minds because of the money. But you get you a good brisket, salt, pepper on there, maybe a little bit of garlic, some stuff on there, and just let that joker go and smoke down, wrap it up, similar to your butts and your ribs. And a good beefy brisket is just some good stuff. I mean, slices, you can cube it up, you can break it down into chop, make barbecue sandwiches. So I have actually got more intrigued with trying to hone my brisket than anything else right now.
Well, that makes two of us, because brisket is by far my favorite thing to cook.
Oh, it's the delicacy, man, when you get it right,
That's exactly right. The trick here that I've learned is that if you keep an eye on, I don't know if there's Kroger's down in your neck of the woods, but I have found that if you catch Kroger on sale, I got them last time for $1.99 a pound. A year ago, I got them for 79 cents a pound.
Whoa. Yeah, that's big right now. I will say this to people that's watching. If you're going to get into this and you're going to start cooking more, the best thing that you can do is meet your local butcher, whether it's at a standalone mom and pops or at your grocery store, your Publix, whatever. Make friends with them. Tell them that you'll start buying more stuff from them, and you'll be surprised that you'll start getting either phone calls or deals saying, "Well, hey, if you start buying X amount from me, I'll start cutting deals from you." I've got a local place here that helps me out a lot because I advertise for them. Gaskins Meats here in Adel, owned by Miss Lynn. She does a phenomenal job, tries to help me out when she can. So I try to buy most of my stuff from her. I can call her, Kelly, that works there as well, and say, "Hey, I need this much cut, this way to help me out, to try to find your best stuff." Never fails. They're always there. It's like, what time do you need to be here and what day are you picking up? I mean, tremendous. So I would say if you want to get into this competition stuff or just cooking in general, find you a good butcher place, a good butcher, and that will help you out because what you start with is going to help how you finish just about every time.
That's exactly right. And it goes back to building those relationships and just talking to people. And I mean, you hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, we're chatting with Pitmaster Jonathan Sands from the Republicans barbecue team. They're based out of Adel, Georgia.
Correct.
And Jonathan, as we wind down the show, any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Yeah, I do, especially for the new people wanting to get into it, or they're still trying to see if they're going to get their toes wet in the pool. Don't be afraid to get in this industry just by what you've seen on TV, say with barbecue pit masters or what you see on YouTube and all that. Everybody got their start some form or fashion by basically crawling, and then they started walking, and then they took off to where they are. The more you cook, the easier it's going to get. The more that you cook, the more that you'll understand, and the more that you experiment, you'll find stuff that works that probably somebody else doesn't know about, and that will give you the advantage if you decide to get into competition barbecue. The other thing that I tell people is a two-faceted thing. Mistakes build champions every day. Mm-hmm. If you're not cooking, then you're not making mistakes. But if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And if you're not learning, you're going to get nowhere in competition barbecue because you've got to find stuff that stands you apart from everybody else that you're out there doing. So it's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay if it gets too overdone or too tender, or if it's too sweet that day, or if it's too spicy. That's fine. I guarantee you there'll still be people that will eat it. You just got to try it again next week or the next weekend, or call your buddies together and watch a ball game or a family event and just keep trying. The other thing, and we've talked about this in the show a little bit earlier, it doesn't really matter what you cook on to start with. Just get something, start cooking on it, and learn the skill. You can have a regular Weber kettle out there and still do well and still make a base barbecue. And I give one example to people that this happened probably 2 years ago. We were at a local competition that we were hosting some of the first responders, law enforcement, and we had some political figures from Georgia there. And I'll use his first name, Tanner. A good buddy of mine, he showed up. And you got to think, you got people showing up, and there's guys like me and the others, and we've got, expensive pellet smokers, offsets that cost, $2,000-$3,000. We're all showing up. Look, well, he decided to get in it, and he brought his large Weber kettle, and he got paired beside me, and that's how we actually met each other, and we're good buddies now. And he was like, you can see that look of just despair on his face, like, what in the world have I gotten into? So I kind of walked over there, and we're talking. I'm firing all my stuff up, getting ready, and I said, "Hey man, nice to meet you." We introduced ourselves, and I said, "You ready to compete?" And he kind of had this look like, I don't know, kind of what I stepped into. And I told him, I said, "Man, it don't matter what you cook on, it's how you cook and what you prepare." And I tell everybody that day, out of the 10, 12 teams I think that we had that day, he actually won first place on ribs on a large Weber kettle. So you have no excuses not to get out and start doing this. If you have a Weber kettle or just a cheap pellet smoker from, say, Walmart or something, you can start learning how to do competition barbecue. You can hone your craft, hone your skill, and then you can start competing with us on the backyard level, the pro circuit, or you can really start getting into it with the GBA or the KCBS and all that.
I love that. Couldn't have said it any better myself. And that's a powerful way to end the show. And again, for our listeners, we're chatting with Pitmaster Jonathan Sands from the Ribpublicans barbecue team. Ribpublicans barbecue team based out of Adel, Georgia. And make sure, go and like his Facebook page. Are you anywhere else on social media, Jonathan?
We aren't right now. I try to keep it strictly on Facebook so I can interact. So if anybody's listening, go check us out, Republicans Barbecue Team. We post a lot of pictures on there. We post a lot of quizzes and stuff like that. We have fan interaction on there. We try to do giveaways as much as we can, T-shirts, merchandise, and all that. So go check us out. Hopefully we're going to get into videos soon, and we'll start doing some how-to so they can help people become, the next competitors that we go against at the next competition.
I love it. Well, thanks again for joining us on the show, Jonathan. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's been an honor. It's been a privilege. I appreciate everything.